So insofar as the GCC 2015 is concerned, again, I've set out for your benefit, the 7 steps. This is what you'll go through, but just bearing in mind time. There is something that I've done at the end of this presentation where I think I'm going to talk specifically to France's point in relation to risk, who bears the risk, and understanding the contract. Because I've taken, for example, out of the GCC 2015, which I'm working with now, and I have identified 3 risks that if you don't know your contract and you don't amend your contract, then there is going to be big trouble. I'm very mindful of the choice of words I'm using here. But rather than me chatting about it, let's have a look at these 3 risks. And this is what I want you to think about in relation to any of the contracts that you choose to use, is that you have to know your contract, you have to read your contract, you have to understand your contract, you have to understand the hidden risks involved. And this is where France is talking about that your JBCC, yes, is much more transparent, but there are risks in relation to a JBCC as well. And when I enter into a JBCC or draft particular conditions for a JBCC contract, what we prepare for our clients is a risk analysis so that everybody understands the risks contained in the contract and how we can mitigate those. So, for example, Clause 512(1) of the GCC provides the following. It says, if the contractor considers himself entitled to an EOT for circumstances of any kind whatsoever, which may occur that will actually, and I've underlined that and bolded that, extend PC of the works beyond the due completion date, the contractor shall claim in accordance with clause 10.1, etc., etc. So what is the risk? The risk is that what the clause says is that the contractor may only claim for an extension of time for circumstances that will actually extend the practical completion of the works beyond the due completion date. So what's the problem with that? Well, I've got 2 main problems with it. A contractor may not be able to institute its claim for an extension of time if it cannot establish that the circumstances will actually extend the practical completion of the works. And what happens if there's circumstances that arise long before the time for the practical completion of the works that only may cause a delay? The contractor will not be able to submit a claim for an extension of time as he will not know whether the delay will actually extend the practical completion of the works. So what do? We mitigate that risk, and I mitigate that risk in all of the GCCs that I'm entering into now, and I amend the schedule of deviations by replacing will actually with may, because then we get into a situation where the contractor need not only put in an extension of time claim insofar as they know it will actually affect the practical completion date, but as we see in the JBCC, you can put in a notification or an extension of time once you have noticed as the contractor that there is an event or circumstance that may affect the practical completion date and entitle you to an extension of time. Can you see here in the GCCs, those 2 words will actually, will result in time again, the inability of the contractor to claim an extension of time unless they know it will actually affect the practical completion date. That can be, and has been in my experience, a huge problem with regards to the new GCCs. We also have a look at these clauses 10.5.1 and 10.5.2, which says if the contract data provides for a dispute resolution by a standing adjudication board. the employer, together with the contractor, shall within 56 days of the commencement date appoint the member or members of the adjudication board. Then it goes on further to say, if the contract data does not provide for dispute resolution by a standing adjudication board, the dispute shall be referred to ad hoc adjudication. So what is the risk? For me, the risk is that the contract data provides for a dispute resolution mechanism by a standing adjudication board, and the members of the board must be appointed within 56 days. Failure to appoint the members, just summarizing the clause, within 56 days, will result in the adjudication and subsequent arbitration procedures being inoperable if the parties specifically elected in the contract data that dispute resolutions must be a standing adjudication board. So we mitigate the risk by amending the clause, which says if the contract data does not provide for a dispute resolution, by a standing DAB, or if the parties fail to appoint the member or members of the standing adjudication board within the time period afforded in clause 10.5.1, the dispute shall be referred to ad hoc adjudication. And what I want to just be able to emphasize here is, and this formed the basis of a case that we actually prepared an article on, and if anybody's interested, I can share that with you. But it's not only insofar as what the contract data must contain, and it's not only in relation to the GCCs, but I cannot emphasize enough, whether you are using the JBCC or you're using FIDIC or you're using NEC or you're using the GCCs. One of the most important aspects of contracting, construction contracting, is filling in that contract data accurately, precisely, and in full, and taking note of what that contract data actually tells you. I can't tell you how many times clients have lost out because they haven't accurately completed their contract data, or they haven't followed what the contract data says. In this instance, the contract data says that you have to appoint the members within 56 days. And if you don't, well, then you're left without a remedy unless you amend it. So it's just an example, but I can't emphasize, guys, enough how important it is to take notice of that contract data. In fact, it's one of the things that we really, we offer packages in relation to the work that we do, so that one of the things in the package that we look at is completing the contract data with our clients. It's that important that the contract data be completed accurately and correctly, and that everybody understands. And then the last one that I want to quickly go through is this issue about variations in the GCC. And it says, no such variation shall be made by the contractor without a written order by the employer's agents in which it is stated to be a variation order. I'm not going to read 6321. It's long and you can read it yourself. But what is the risk that you see just in that clause, or at least what is the risk that I see for my clients? If the contract is ordered to vary the form, quality, or quantity of the works and does not confirm in writing that that order is a variation order and receives confirmation from the employer's agent in writing that the order is a variation order, do you know that you as the contractor will not be paid for any additional work performed? You can go and you can do the work and you're going to come and the contractor is going to cry to me and say, but I did all the work. And I'm going to say to them, your contract says that until you have a written document that confirms the order as a variation order, you do not become entitled to a cent, not a ZAC, nothing. So how do we mitigate this risk? Is that upon receiving an order from the employer's agent to vary the quality or quantity, etc., our contractors immediately request in writing a written order from the employer's agent that stipulates that this order is a variation order and the extent of the variation to the works. It's a simple thing to do, but without doing it, it doesn't matter what I try and do for all the contractors out there. Without that written variation order, that contractor contractually becomes entitled to nothing, to absolutely nothing. And these are just three things that I wanted to highlight, or three risks that I wanted to highlight to you in terms of the GCCs. And there are risks that emanate from all the contracts. It's just that this is a new contract. I've been working with it quite a bit, so it's at the forefront of my mind in relation to risks that we're seeing. And as much as we can all read a contract, these contracts are sometimes verbose. They contain hidden risks. They contain legal implications that, you know, for the life of me, sometimes I don't even understand, having done this for 12 or 14 years, and I don't want to give away my age. But it just emphasizes, and what I want to emphasize and leave this meeting with, is that there are options out there. Everything is designed for a particular purpose and should be used for a particular purpose. Reading your contract, understanding your contract, understanding why you're choosing that particular contract, understanding risks and being able to mitigate those risks. It's not just as simple as somebody telling you, use the GCCs. I'm saying, please don't just use any contract. Again, I'm emphasizing and reiterating what France is saying. Certain of the contracts really work better than others under certain circumstances. And we are, it's for us to actually take up the sword and say, you know, I know you're telling me to use this contract, or I'm putting this contract out to tender to all these contractors, but they don't understand the contract, and this is possibly not going to work. And it's for us to also just acknowledge, know, appreciate that there are these other contracts out there, what's involved, and then we're going to, please dear God, be in a position where the projects that we're doing according to the correct contract works. And I'm not talking about the works of the contract, I'm saying that it's a project that works between two parties, multiple parties, for the benefit of the project and the benefit of the parties. Guys, our construction industry is in turmoil. And the little bit that I can do is to be able to educate and to share some knowledge that I have in relation to these contracts, in relation to choosing the right contract, understanding risks. And this is honestly, it's just the tip of the iceberg that I've been able to cover today in an hour and a half. There have been some brilliant questions that have come out of this, some further thought that needs to go into aspects that you've alerted me to, and for which I'm grateful. You know, it's 11:30. Sean, I don't want to keep anybody longer than necessary, but as I said, I'm still here.
Thank you, Adine. Thank you very much. And the purpose of you running through these four we discussed would be just to, you know, put all four of them out there, and then we could say, right, you know, which one is there more interest in, and you offer to come back at a later point and maybe cover one or two or all four of those. And so let's ask if there is interest, if there is some thought on which one to look at first,